Alrighty. Good morning. This is Ron. Go ahead and get started. See if we have any questions today. We started yesterday. We were looking at something in Daniel's chapter 7, verses 13 and 14, and trying to gain some understanding of that because it looks like us. It resembles us and where we are today. Uh, in a very real way as far as uh, what is described here as what is going on and what you're up against. So you see a picture of in these two short verses, you see a picture of a contrast really. And how it should and the only way that it can be handled is to recognize yourself and who you are. So uh I'll wait on Pastor to come because I want him to do a recap on this. Uh so that
Excuse me, Ron.
uh
Ron,
yes,
you
ma'am.
forgot to say the date. You forgot to say the day and the date, sir.
I certainly did. Thank you very much. It is Sunday, December 29th. I appreciate that. I did forget. Thank you.
Hey Ron, this is Evelyn. Can
Hey,
we
Evelyn.
start asking questions, or you want to wait till Pastor get on the phone?
I was waiting for he might be a minute though, but go ahead and ask your question. And let's
Okay, I was listening to the broadcast on yesterday, and you guys were talking about Atum, Atum. That's
uh-huh.
how it's spelled, and it's saying that y'all were saying that Atum is the creative word. So I don't know if this question was asked yesterday or not. I really don't remember, but did Atum? Who created Atum? Or has Atum has Atum already been here? Has always been here? Is it like the I am? That's my question.
Okay. Let me say this part, and I give it to George and Pastor if he's on yet. But what we try to do, Evelyn, is when we look at the scriptures, because we believe that uh, the scriptures gives us details of who we are. These are stories that were copied, of course, from the Kemet writings, and but they still have truth in them, even though they were manipulated. So the attempt is when we look at scriptures to try to show what the realistically what it should look like. So that's why you keep hearing some of the names come up until we get used to them, till we understand all of this. We'll see the linkage and how it was masked and covered over. Okay, so uh, I see Pastor on now, but I want to address your question first. George, do you want to talk about a tomb first?
Sure. Again, good question, Evelyn. And when we speak of a tune, what we want to understand is that a tune is the creative word. It was the word spoken. And so pata basically spoke into existence, everything that was to have names. And so when we say Atum, we're speaking about Ptah, Elohim, speaking the spoken word. So what you have, is that process, from, and again, and I'm just going to just generally just go back right quick to say, is that from the beginning, when we talk about the eternal waters of the Nun, right? What we have is everything that is existed, in the eternal waters. And from the eternal waters, Ptah, you know what I mean? That energy came out of the waters, which basically became Ptah, which is Elohim. And so with Elohim now, we're talking about the creative word being spoken as we speak about it in John, when it says in John 1, in the beginning was the word was with God, the word was God. So it was, again, patah, in the Kemetic teachings, that was that spoken word that was spoken into existence, that we have all of the names that we can kind of compare to what it was in the Bible. Does that help, Evelyn? Or I'm sure.
Yes, sir. It helps a lot. And then when you talk about the waters of noon, you're not talking about like the liquid that we see.
No.
Are you talking about the spirit of noon? Is that the same thing as the spirit?
Yes. And so in the waters of Nun, it's not the regular H2O water. It is the substance. It is the matter. It is the plasma. It is that all-encompassing substance that we call the universe, which is the Nun. And out of that, became the energy at rest that moved to that energy in motion. And again, that was Patah, that was Elohim that came out of the waters, that basically spoke into existence the creative word. And Atum is the creative word that gives names to all things in the cosmic universe. And that's where we understand that it symbolizes the divine light within matter, if that helps, Evelyn.
So
Yes,
noon is the
GC.
substance
Yes.
of everything, right?
I'm sorry, Ron, say it again.
What you're saying then is noon is the substance of in which everything came from that.
That's the universe, yes,
The universe. Okay.
the universe.
I have
And,
a, I have a quick question.
yes, go ahead.
Is atom and atom the same?
Yes, yes, and basically, Atum was taken from the word Adam, and that is the same as so above, so below. But is Atum is that word that came from Adam, or Adam came from Atum.
Okay, so I know that the word is vibration and atoms vibrate.
Yes.
Everything moves. So that's why I was wondering if they're the same thing.
Yes, and I think that's where we can look at it when we talk about frequency, artery, or we talk about vibration, and that's where in the waters, right? You have the wavicles, you have that sound, you know what I mean? That energy, that flow, and so all of that is from the Nun, which is the universe.
Right. Evelyn?
One more question. You know it, Ron. Thank you.
Mhm.
So did Abwum create the atom, the atom? I mean, I know everything was created by Source, but did Abwum create the atom, the atom?
Pass had his hand up. Go ahead, pass it.
Yeah, you're talking two different languages, Ellen.
Okay.
A womb is the universe, but that's the universe from the Aramaic.
Okay.
And as George was saying, noon is just the universe, but it's from the Kemetic language. So you could say universe, you could say noon, you can say abum. All of them are the same thing, just three different languages. No different than you say Elohim, you say God, you say Mungu, all of them the same thing. You say Patah, same thing as Elohim.
Okay.
You just talk a different language with Abu.
Okay. It's just a lot that it's just a lot that we're given, and I'm just trying to get understanding. But thank you for the clarity.
I'll tell you what, I think at the end of this, you will get more clarity. At least I hope, Evelyn. If not, continue to ask questions. Uh, if you don't mind, guys, before I find out if there are any more questions, we do have a question we'd like to begin with after this and then. someone had a question about what we talked about yesterday, particularly the understanding of Ancient of Days and how this fits in. So what I was going to ask, if Pastor could kind of recap and look at that and pull all that together and even talk about what we just finished discussing, because what we've tried to do is overlay the comedic energy into our conversations to show how these things are related and where they come from. So, Pastor, you want to take a look at this, if you would, please?
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Let's begin at the beginning. When we talk about the beginning, we are talking about the universe. And when we speak of the universe from the Kemetic language, we call it noon. But within the universe is the substance for everything that was created. And when we talk about the Ancient of Days, days, the root of days is continuation. And ancient speaks of something old. So the ancients of days is talking about a continuation of our beginnings. And if we see the continuation of our beginnings, then we will understand what was meant when the words that was attributed to Jesus, you must be born again, means that you must return to beginning, is what it was saying. That is another way of saying, don't forget where you came from. If you don't know where you came from, if you don't know your origin, then you cannot return to that origin because you don't know what to return to. Does that make sense so far? And I'm just talking to anyone. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what we did and what happened, we had a serendipitous experience. We went through the beginning of mankind in the earth when we talked about the African being in the earth for 4 million plus years, the first people on the earth. We went through the whole litany of the history of that and brought it up to today. What the serendipitous experience that we were having is we were talking about history, but in the spiritual essence of it is that we were returning to beginning, and we were making everyone aware of our beginning, what our origin is. And when I say our, I'm talking about the whole of humanity. All of us came from the same root, and the root of all of humanity is the African. Does that make sense? This is not rhetorical. I need to know that we're on the
Yes.
same page.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Now, because of that, because of our returning to beginning, what do we see? When we return to beginning, we also see what took place prior to the human being on the earth. And what do we see? What we see is this entity that is known, that is referenced by many different labels. And I can't say name because we don't know the totality of the characteristics of this being. So what do we call this being? Evelyn called it the source. I call it Ein Sof. Others call it Ein Sof. There are those who call it the light of all lights, the creator of everything that it ever been. This is the one who brought the universe into existence, and we don't have the capacity to be able to characterize this entity, Ein Sof. Ein Sof brought into existence the universe, and out of the universe came Elohim. In the Kemetic language, it is Ptah. And when we talk about Elohim, what did Elohim do? Elohim spoke into existence everything that is, no different than Ptah and the Atum. And the Atum. The same thing transpired. However, they are different understandings. When we read Genesis and we talk about Elohim, said, let there be, and it was whatever he said, or whatever it said, rather. When we talk about that, we have been taught that these words brought everything into being, giving us the idea that what was spoken was verbiage, that there was a sound to it. However, when we look at the reality of it, we see that it was not let that be as much as it was a vibration. And when we talk about the word vibrated, we can look at every time we speak, our vocal cords vibrate. So you cannot have a word without vibration. So the vibration of Ptah, or the vibration of Elohim, brought into existence everything that exists to this day. And the source for all of that was in what in the Kemetic language is noon, or in our language it is universe, or in the language of in the Aramaic it is Avum. But that is the source that was brought into existence, so that everything that we are engaged with now, we understand that that was his origin. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Yes,
It does.
yes.
Okay, so understanding that that was its origin, then the question becomes, where do we fit into this? If everything came out of the universe, and the vibrations of the atom, which is atom, formed everything that we are able to see now, inclusive of us, the human. And where do we fit in all of this? Our vibration, our rhythm, is no different than the vibration or the rhythm of our Creator, Elohim. So we are Elohim. We are the vibrations of Ptah. We are the vibrations of Elohim. Either one of those words you can use, because both of them mean the same thing. And we are that vibration. And what happened is Europeans took what should have been ATOM and made it ADAM, Adam. And when, because they did not understand vibrations and how vibration brought everything into existence. Are you still with me, right?
We're still with you.
Yes,
Okay, so understanding that we are Elohim in this earth, that means that we have a specific purpose. The specific purpose for our existence in this earth was to populate the earth, and in doing so, bring earth to a place of balance and peace, meaning that we are God in this earth. And the reason it's so difficult is because we don't understand the concept one yet many. The one God in this earth is the one spirit of all of us. The yet many is the bodies that we travel in. There are many bodies represented on the Zoom call, and yet it's only one spirit. And being that one spirit, and having the responsibility of populating the earth, we were out of our genetic pool were to bring into earth those whose bodies were like ours, but their features not necessarily so. Yet their soul, their soul is to be um, as ours is, because we are to create in our image and likeness. We are to bring into existence emotional state that is in our image and likeness, loving kindness, mercy, forgiveness. Those are traits of Mayat, even though they don't say it that way. And when I mention Mayat, I'm simply talking about the principles by which we are to live. Right from wrong is basically what we're talking about when we say Mayat. And because of our having that responsibility of populating the earth, out of our gene pool came every other human who exists in this earth, whether it is a Japanese or a Chinese, whether it is a Native American or whether it is a European, it doesn't matter. All of it came from our gene pool. As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, not a few weeks ago, I'm sorry, a few years ago, this Chinese scientist was mapping genes. And there were those who got upset with him because he said that without the African, there would not be a Chinese, because the markers are there to prove that the Chinese had its origin in Africans. And so we have that responsibility to create in our image and likeness. Now, where we are at this juncture, we are struggling to understand that mission, because we have been inundated with a belief system that disregards the reality of our Creator and have made it be what they want it to be. And it is called Christianity, and it is called Islam, and it is called Judaism. Those are labeled religions are all the same. And what I mean by all the same, the rituals are there, and the rituals may vary within the confines of those religious beliefs, but they are still rituals. When we look at it spiritually, excuse me, there are no rituals. The gene pool, as well as the teaching methods that we were given in Kemet or in Africa, are the methods that we are to use to bring everyone to bring everyone to a place where there are our image and likeness. An example of that would be this: there were no languages in the earth before the African. There was no written language in the earth before the African taught Europeans how to write. The Greeks were given their language from the Kemites, and that language is present on the Rosetta Stone. And you've heard of the Rosetta Stone, the linguistic company that teaches languages. Well, that's where it got its name from, the Rosetta Stone. So the Greeks, not only did they have on the stone the alphabets for the Greek language, but it also had hieroglyphics. But there's one thing that very rarely we talk about. It also had phonetics. And phonetics are used to pronounce words and to create languages. So every language on this earth, spoken or written, had its origin in Kemet. That's the beginning of our created in our image and likeness. The spiritual aspects of that we have not accomplished yet. And the reason we have not accomplished it yet is because we have been sidetracked by other things. And the things that we've been sidetracked by is slavery, Christianity, and making every effort to be like the enslaver. So right now, we are in that same place. When I say we, I'm talking about pretty much the humanity as a whole. It's in that place where we're struggling to get out of this cocoon so we can be the butterflies who bring peace and harmony to this earth. What is that cocoon? That cocoon is systemic racism. That cocoon was woven by Europeans, and everyone who does not look like a European is in that cocoon, struggling to get out of it. And we have been destined to bring to lead humanity out of this cocoon of bondage, so that humanity can be the butterfly that it was intended to be. And one of the ways that we do that is by recognizing the source that has always been available to us, but we have been taught that is pagan, that is of the devil, that is evil. And that source that has always been available to us are our ancestors. And we know this, but we don't like to admit it in the terms of saying they are ancestors, because most of us who have experienced the transition of someone who's close to us, we have had apparitions of them. We've heard them talking to us. We've seen them in our rooms. And doing, especially during times of despair, we can hear those voices. Well, we said, I saw Mama last night, as opposed to saying, the ancestors are talking to me. So the question becomes, who are the ancestors? I told you earlier that we are one spirit. The ancestors are within the confines of that statement I made about being spirit. The difference between the ancestors and us is that we are embodied in this physical house, this physical vehicle that carries us around as individuals. The ancestors are not in those vehicles. The ancestors are 100% spiritual, yet they are able to influence us because they have had our experiences, and they are in a place now where they are able not only to be observers, but they can be influencers of the direction that we take. But they cannot force us to do it. It has to be voluntarily. We have to voluntarily seek our origin. We have to voluntarily desire to embody the spiritual essence of the Kemite priesthood. Those must be our desires. We must believe that we are Ptah. We are Elohim. We must believe that. And if you Swahili, Mungu, but all of them mean the same thing. We must believe that we are Elohim, that we are God. If you cannot embrace that reality, it is impossible for you to be a creator, because what you have done in essence is cut yourself off from your creative force. So when we look at the whole concept of ancestry, what we are talking about is the energy forces that once inhabited a physical body like ours. And if you raise the question, what are the ancestors? The ancestors are one with the essence of what brought us into existence, and that is spirit itself. That is breath. That is air. Our ancestors are always in this environment called Earth. And when we think about, we talked about how hurricanes leave the same place on the east coast of Africa and head in this direction, following the same pathway that the ships traveled when they brought us here and enslaved us. Then, so the ancestors, when we talk to the ancestors, rather, it is more of a silent experience, silent meaning. You don't necessarily verbalize anything. The experience is your desire to speak with the ancestors, to be guided by the ancestors, and you don't hear a verbal voice. However, it's no different than you hearing in the inside of you saying, I shouldn't have done that. Well, you don't verbalize it, but you feel it. And that is the experience that you have with the ancestors. And the message that you are given is not necessarily something you're going to realize at that moment. The direction that you are given, you would have traveled in that direction before you even realize that you have done it, meaning the spiritual journey that we are on. We say things that we were never taught, and we explain things that never was explained to us. Yet we're able to do that, and they resonate. Why do they resonate? Because they are one with the energy. They are in rhythm with the universe itself. They are vibrating at the same frequency as the ancestors are vibrating, at the same frequency of the atom that was brought into existence from the beginning. And I'm talking about the ATOM, not the ADAM, that was brought into existence from the beginning. We as a people, we as Elohim in this earth, we never, ever sought to separate masculinity from femininity. We never sought, never tried to dominate masculinity or femininity. We recognize that they are actually one because one cannot function, one cannot exist without the other. So we've never done that. However, we have been put in a place of abject stupidity by virtue of embracing a masculine religion called Christianity that dominates females and disrespect and the female. And the thing that Christianity, one of the things that Christianity has done to men, it made men feel like they are supermen, that they are white men, that they run everything, they dominate everything. Simply because you have the genitalia and the gender, it does not make you a man. It makes you a male, but not a man. What makes you a man is recognizing who you are. I am Elohim. And by me being masculine, then that means that I am a complement to femininity, and understanding that femininity is the essence or is the origin of life. And that is the reason why it is called the cosmic mother. And that is the reason why it is called the mother of all on this earth, that every human came from the same womb. That the reason for that is because there is no other way to bring into this earth this physical body that we travel in. And if you think about what happens when that matter, that physical matter comes out of the womb, that physical matter does not exist until it takes a breath, until it inhales spirit, until it begins its journey, when spirit begins that journey in it. And when that journey begins, it is the parents who are usually are the ones who have the greater influence on the child. And none of us were born a Baptist or Christian or Muslim. We weren't born to be that. We were raised in that environment. And that's how we became that. Yet now, because of the questions that we raised, we are at a place now where we are beginning to see that there are no labels for who we are in terms of our spirituality. Those labels have been assigned to us in order to control, manipulate, and destroy us. Questions or comments? Especially
I have a
about
comment.
yes.
About what you just said, what you just told us. So did you not just explain what Jesus told Nicodemus about he had to go back to beginning?
Yes, I did.
Because that's what I saw when you were explaining
And let me speak
about the
that.
beginning and everything. Okay.
Because what you saw as I was talking may not be what Kathy saw or may not be what Jackie saw. what Evelyn saw. What you saw is what you needed. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. And you explained it very well, because in the Bible, it only tells you about Jesus saying you must be born again, but it doesn't explain what he was saying. But when I heard what you said, it resonated, and that's what it made sense. Now
Okay.
I can see what that means. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is
Good
Valerie.
morning.
Um,
Go ahead, Valerie. I'll ask after you.
okay. I just wanted to know, should we be detaching from these titles?
What do you mean, Christianity?
Yeah, yeah, all of that.
But you cannot be who you were created to be unless you do detach from it. See, spirituality does not control you. Christianity does. Christianity has all these rituals that tell you what you must do and must not do. Christianity, the rituals of Christianity are based upon manipulation, and every single ritual that is considered to be religious or Christian is a lie. Every single one of them is a lie. And if you think about what happens during the period of each one of those rituals, you are required to do something. You are required to perform and act or embrace Jesus in a manger lie that we have been told. And that when you do that, what you are doing is acquiescing to the control of Christianity itself. Does that make sense, Val?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Any question about what I just said before we go to Kathy? Okay, Kathy.
Yeah, I got one question after Ms. Cassie. You all, good morning. Thank y'all.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you, George. Okay, if I'm hearing you correctly, Pastor, and I'm talking this out for myself, based on what you said this morning, because I think I see it clearer than I've seen it from the moment we've been teaching this from the very beginning. So what you're saying, because I've always believed that Ancient of Days was some type of entity, and I'm hearing you say it's energy that takes us back to the beginning so that we can identify who we are and create from the right source. Because what I've taught in the past is that we are creators, regardless of whether we are creating correctly or incorrectly. Based on limited information, we've created incorrectly. But now going back to the beginning takes us to the origin of all that is and who we are, and understanding who we are. Now we are creating from the right source, even though we've created from the wrong source in the beginning when we didn't understand it. That's part of my question. And the second part, when you spoke of the characteristics, we talked on yesterday about the pantheon of gods that people worship. And I kind of got a little stuck there because you said it was the characteristics of Insolve. So based on those characteristics, are we saying things like Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Shammah, Jehovah Rapha, all of these names that they assign to be gods for all the characteristics of Insolve? And now that we're understanding the creative source of all that is, we're on the right path now, if that's making any sense. Are you
Yes.
understanding my question?
I do understand your question.
All right, thank you.
Okay, when Audrey brought up the pantheon of gods in reference to Ptah, and I responded by saying those are the characteristics of Ptah. What I'm saying in essence is that Osiris and Isis, masculine and feminine, brought into existence Haru, and some call him Horus. That's Greek for Haru. The Bible, Christianity says that it is Joseph and Mary who brought into existence Jesus. Well, that is not that too difficult to research and see that that story came from the story about Isis and Iris. Osiris and Isis rather. And when this story comes into play, what all it's saying is that um, Osiris and Isis are masculine and feminine. And the masculine and feminine brought into existence an offspring that has the seeds of life. And that offspring is the sun, the S-U-N. That's the physical manifestation of the energy that is called Haru. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that energy called Haru is shown to us because this is an example that whatever is desired in the spiritual realm is brought into existence by masculinity and femininity. And that offspring of spirituality is always for the benefit of humanity, of this physical environment that we live in. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Therefore, the masculine and feminine, whether you call it Osiris and Isis or whether you call it Joseph or Mary, that energy is masculine and feminine. And it is, as I said earlier, about femininity and masculinity. Femininity is the source of life. And when it talks about Isis and Osiris bringing into existence Haru without Osiris having a penis, this speaks to the story about all humans came from the womb of a woman, but it does not speak to a man being present when that woman gave birth to all of humanity. Are you still with me?
So far, yes.
So that story is telling us that there is no life in this earth that does not come from a womb, just like there are no physical entities, whether they be the heavenly bodies of the universe that did not come from a womb. Everything that exists comes from a womb. So when we talk about the characteristics, we are simply saying that we have the same characteristics as does Elohim. What does that mean? When they talk about Rapha, the God, the healer, Jehovah Rapha, the one who heals, that these are characteristics of you. Just because they are written in the Old Testament about this entity called Jehovah, this does not preclude the reality that you are God, you are Elohim, and these are your characteristics. The assignment of these characteristics to unseen God is in error, and it was done simply because there was no understanding of spirituality by those who wrote those words, or who actually translated or took from the Kemetic writings, the sacred writings, and wrote something that we call the Bible to this day. And all of these things that we're talking about are very easily researched. Does that make sense?
Yes, that clears it up. Thank you so much. I got it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, please?
Just a quick comment. Good morning, this is Audrey. Remember that poster we had on the wall at Foundation that showed that the name Yahweh is sort of creates the body?
Yeah, yeah.
So in essence, that in itself shows us that we are God, doesn't it?
It does indeed, yes.
Anyway, I just remembered that when you were talking.
Yes. And everything that was on that poster represented energy. So we are energy. We are not this body. We are energy. Thank you. Anyone else? Questions or comments?
George had a question. Are you still there, George?
George?
Hey, yeah, yes, sir. Thank y'all. Reb, or to the group, is there a difference between femininity, the energy itself, and the energy of feminine energy? And the reason why I ask that, I just think the world, well, correction, I respond better to femininity more so than I respond toward feminine energy. And by saying that, I just look at femininity as old negative blood. It can pour into anything, yet femininity needs femininity to pour into. So my question is there a difference between femininity and is there a difference between feminine energy? And if I look at it,
I got your question, George.
Okay, then just well.
Okay, it's funny you say that when you used it as an example, O blood, type O. It is written that 80%, over 80% of all the people who were enslaved from Africa had O type blood until they began to intermingle with other races of people. And that spoke volumes to me when I read that. It's just one of those things that was in my repertoire of memory of things that I remember rather.
What was the explanation for the other 20%? What did they?
They had intermingled with other people, other races.
Okay.
The reason it struck me so strongly when I read it is because O blood anyone can be infused with O blood, regardless of the type of blood you have. That's just a sidebar. One of those things that neither here nor there, I guess. I don't know. However, go ahead. Audrey, were you about to say something?
No, I was just thinking, yeah, type O is a universal donor.
Yes.
So it can be given to anybody with any other blood type.
Yes, absolutely. As far as the feminine, okay. Any other questions or comments about the O type blood? As far as the difference between femininity and feminine is that femininity is spiritual, and those who are spiritual recognize its femininity and respect it. Feminine is a term that was made up by Europeans for the express purpose of dominating everything that's feminine, dominating females and seeking to kill any male who expresses feminine energy. Feminine is a term that describes an action or a gender. Femininity describes an energy that must be present before any life can exist. Can you see that difference? If I need to go further with it, I will.
Can you repeat that?
Explore a little bit more.
Okay, then George, are you with me so far? Thank you. I will do that in a second.
Yes.
Judge Watson?
Yeah, I'm still with y'all, Rev. Y'all go ahead. I got y'all on mute, but I'm listening, boss.
Okay. George, were you about to ask something?
No. I was just gonna, ask again, just to explain that difference again.
Okay, sure. What I'm saying is that when you look at femininity, Femininity describes an energy source. Feminine is attributed to, is a label for females. And it is destruction for any male who expresses anything that's feminine about them. Are you with me so far? So when we talk about being feminine, that does not have the same connotations of femininity, the energy itself. Because we in this earth have been taught that feminine looks a certain way physically. Feminine acts a certain way in terms of its physical expressions. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes,
Can you see that difference now?
yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So what happens is when we look at feminine and disregard or femininity, that energy of femininity, then what we are actually doing is falling into a trap where women or anyone who looks feminine is dominated by anyone who looks masculine. Does that make sense?
Say it again, Pastor.
When we lean towards feminine, describing as feminine being female, then what we've done is fall into a trap of masculinity, of males are dominating females. When you look at it from femininity and masculinity, in terms of the energy sources, you see complementary relationship there, as opposed to one that's at odds with each other. Does that make sense? And I'll talk about it some
Yes.
more. Audrey?
Well, will you please?
Yeah, go ahead, Audrey. Okay. All I'm saying is this, 882. Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, so one has to do with spirituality, femininity. Feminine has to do with our trying to take that a spiritual principle and cover it in a physical veil. Doesn't quite work, because when we cover it with the veil of feminine, then we put these labels attached to it from the physical perspective, how one looks, how one, how one walks, how that kind of stuff. So one is clearly seeking to show how we are part of a spiritual source, and the other is taking that and sort of, in a sense, perverting the essence of the original intent of what femininity is by transposing it and making it a physical kind of thing, a physical kind of word, and approaching it from a physical perspective.
You're right. That's exactly what I said, guys. Thank you, Barbara Jean.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Go ahead, Evelyn.
No, she did explain it the same way you did, Pastor Jay, but okay. Yeah, thank you. So I got a question though with that.
Uh-huh.
Is that the same when we say they have chemistry? If you see a couple together and you could see them, the reciprocity of them, vibrating on the same level, their thoughts, and they complement each other. That's the same thing as chemistry. You could just see the chemistry with people.
What we call chemistry is an unknown relationship between masculinity and femininity. And the reason I say unknown is because those who you are observing do not realize that what they are being expressive of is the true nature of femininity and masculinity in terms of it complementing each other. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. I got it. Thank you.
There are people who are not a couple or, as we say, married to each other. However, they have a very strong chemistry. And regardless of what happens, that chemistry doesn't change, which means that there is something there, energy-wise, that brings them together for an express purpose. And that togetherness does not have to be physically at all. Does that make sense?
Is that the oneness we talk about?
Sort of, kind of.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, the word chemistry comes from the word chemet. So when we talk about chemistry, it shouldn't be a C, it should be a K. And chemistry and chemet was an understanding of the existence of everything that is and what characteristic it had that made it what it is. The reason that Imhotep was able to bring healing to the body is because he understood chemistry. He understood what would dominate an invasive organism that was detrimental to the body. He understood the interaction between what he gave them in terms of herbs and that which was harming the body. And that's where chemistry came from. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. George Watson.
Yeah, Reb, thank you for giving your interpretation of it. It is just that with me personally, I'm always at odds with advocates of feminine energy. And at odds is not a bad thing to me because I appreciate diversity. Yet
My question is this. Well, I want to ask you to give me an example of you being at odds with feminine.
Reb, I ain't gonna do that because ain't no one gonna understand it, and they would understand it, but I'm not gonna do that. I'll do that with you one-on-one though.
Okay, well I'm gonna do it myself right now. Is that okay?
Go ahead, boss.
Okay. The only reason that feminine and masculine is at odds is because they don't know who they are. They have bought into a system of chaos. And the system of chaos that they have bought into is a system of religion/government. And the system of chaos is seen in Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, where the feminine is dominated by the masculine, whether it be a hijab they're being forced to wear, or whether in Islam, or whether it is Judaism, where they are forced to sit on the separate sides of the synagogue, or whether it's Christianity, even though our church could not exist without the feminine in it, they are dominated and mistreated by the leadership. That leaks into family structure. And when that leaks into family structure, you see a house in chaos because the masculine and the feminine are at odds because they are living under the shadow of a system that they have bought into that they should never have believed. And that creates more problems in this society than anything else. Whenever we are at odds, the masculine and the feminine are at odds, or the feminine and the masculine are at odds, that means you have lost the sense of who you are. When you know who you are, and I'm going to give you a personal example. And I think I've said this to you before. If I haven't, just act like I have. When I first got married, I said to Phoebe that we will not argue in front of the children. If we have anything that we disagree on, we would discuss it in private. And if I began to engage in argument, stop me. If you do it, I'll stop you and say, let's talk about it later on. And every single time that we talked about it later on, we came to an understanding about what should be done. What was happening there? Of course, I did not know it then, but what was happening there was a mutual respect for femininity and masculinity. Does that make sense? I remember very clearly once, Phoebe has graduated from Denmark, and she one of the things that she did very well was make patterns for clothing and draw what you call those things that you use to build a house?
Blueprints.
Blueprints, yes. And when I'm preaching, and she decides, I say to her, "Do you want to go back to school?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Why do you want to go back?" She said, "Because you want me to." And I told her, "You're not going back to school. If you're comfortable with who you are, I'm comfortable with who you are. You're not going back to school because preacher wife's supposed to be a teacher. That's crazy. Preacher wife got to have a degree. That's stupid. Why do you have to go back to college? Because you are my wife. That's crazy. That's totally disrespecting femininity. If I say that I want you to go back, what am I saying? I'm saying you are not good enough. You need to improve yourself. Is that not what I'm saying? That's a total disregard.
Yeah.
That's a total disregard for femininity. These are examples of this idea of having a chaotic relationship between masculine and feminine. I would much rather understand femininity and masculinity as complements to each other than to engage in masculine and feminine, because they're always in chaos. And every bit of this came from Europeans. Europeans have never respected a female. European males, they have never respected females. You can go back to the history of the inception of Europeans in Europe, and you will find that the reason they did not accept females is because they were stronger and they were more capable of overpowering them physically. And that's what they did consistently. There were no instances that I have ever found where African men beat their women until they came in contact with Europeans. So when you are mistreated, or when you are in a chaotic situation with a female, you are functioning from the mindset of a European. And it doesn't matter who you are. Does that make sense? Well, I know it makes sense, so I don't have to ask that
Yes,
question.
it does.
I don't have to
Yes.
ask. And any male who puts his hands on a woman, or any male who curses her out, any male who denigrates her, that male has no self-respect and can never truly embrace spirituality. And the same works the other way as well. George, what, George Clark? Yes, sir. Question?
I think George Watson was going to say something.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. GC out of Philly. Rev, everything you say I agree with. However, sometimes there are civil wars that take place out here between advocates of femininity and advocates of feminine energy. And as an example, I don't know if you all remember, there was a case that took place in Columbia. I think the high school was Irmo, where a police officer removed a female student real aggressively. And I remember the conversation between my mother and my father. My father was saying, that's wrong. And my mother was saying, George, life is about following instructions. The teacher asked the student, she gave the student a request. I forgot what it was, yet I knew it was kind of harmless. And to see my parents be on different ends of it, I had to side with my mother. Life is about following instructions. And if you all can remember it, I did say to my mother, what's that again, Reverend Richard?
I said, I remember the incident you're talking about.
And I remember just voicing to my parents, I don't think that police officer is racist. So I dig the aspect of masculine energy and feminine energy being at odds with one another.
Y'all more European than European. George,
yeah, no more than
George, no. George, you stated what you said. That is irritating as hell.
What's irritating as heaven?
The idea that it was okay to drag that child out of that classroom simply because that child did not obey our teacher or whomever. That's police brutality. And for you, let me finish. For you or your mama to say that is all right is reprehensible.
Appreciate it. All I'm standing on with that, Reverend Richard, life is about following instructions. I never said that. I even admitted he removed her aggressively. I'm not for that.
Let me.
Yet I am.
George, I'm telling you that there are commands that are given by policemen and people in authority that are unsavory. They are dehumanizing. And people don't act out for no reason. Either there's a problem at home or there's a problem in that classroom. And that policeman he never would have taken a blonde-headed, blue-eyed child and drugged them out of a classroom. It doesn't matter what you say. That would not have happened to a white girl. And if a black policeman had drug a white girl out of that classroom, he would be in jail because he would be charged with a crime of abuse. And
I agree.
So what I'm saying in essence is, yes, there are rules out here, but I will not obey an illegal order. Neither will I obey a rule that only pertains to me. And you are giving me orders to do something simply because of the color of my skin. I would rather die than acquiesce to a system that has always been stacked against me. And the things that we are talking about are not the things in this physical world, because the thing that you described are the things that we are working against. We are working to change those things, because if that had been mutual respect, George, mute your phone, please. If there had been mutual respect, that never would have happened. There are ways to de-escalate a situation without being, as you put it, aggressive or violent. Does that make sense to you guys? Can you see what the statements I'm trying to make? Come on, guys.
Absolutely.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And the other thing is this: suppose that had been your daughter. It's like people who are gay. I know preachers who talked about gay people like a dog until they found out that their son was gay. And all of a sudden, it was different. We must have empathy, regardless of whether or not it is someone who's close to us or our offspring. We must have the same emotional attachments to humanity at large that we have for our own people that are biologically attached to us. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
It is clear.
Crystal.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
sir.
Yes.
Well, look at Reb. I agree with everything that you all said, what you said, and I agree with everyone who agreed with you. Yet there is a little civil war that takes place out here in humanity between people who appreciate femininity and people who are advocates of feminine energy. And the next time I see it going off, I'm going to remind you all of it, that it takes place out here. And it's not just
nobody denied that. Nobody denied that, George. Nobody denied that the Civil War is based on racism. Period. Everything that we do in this society is an offshoot from the European mindset. We have become more attuned to a European mindset than we are attuned to an African mindset. Why? Because we don't know what an African mindset is, because we have been taught that anything that's African is ignorant. Anything that's African is subhuman. Anything that's African can't be divine. It can only be destroyed. Yet, there is no survival without the African. There is no computer. There's no cell phone. There is no train. There is nothing on this earth without the African, not even life. Regardless of how we are treated, is one thing that Europeans know if they don't know anything else. We are the source of life. That's who we are. If there are no questions or comments, I'm done with that particular subject. Ron,
Yes,
let me,
sir.
first of all, was there clarity on when we talked about the creation all the way down to where we are today?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Ron, I have a question before we end today. Well, I have a comment and a question. My comment is, and this is all I'm going to say about this, to have a better understanding in a physical sense of the spiritual power of femininity, I recently, well, last night I watched this movie, The 6888, that really showed you the power of the African woman. And to better understand the creative forces that we are, I would just suggest that anybody who has not seen that, please look at that. And that's all I want to say on that. But my question is going back to the ancestors.
Name of it again?
It's the new Tyler Perry movie, which I don't usually get into his movies, but this one I really like. It's called The 6888. And I don't want to give anything away. I'm just going to say look at it.
Netflix.
But my question is, I beg it. Yeah, Netflix. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Awesome. And if you don't take pride, and I don't mean haughty pride, but I mean just the power that we are, if you don't walk away with a sense of self, then you don't understand the whole movie. But my question becomes, and we can answer this tomorrow night, when we speak of the ancestors and the roles of the ancestors, and we look at the scripture that says, all of creation is groaning, waiting for us to get it right. And I had said something that I just noticed this recently. I was talking to Pastor that every time there's a change in the White House and we move toward a negative energy going into the White House, there's an uptick in viral things that interrupt the ability to breathe. There's now an uptick in the flu. COVID is still there. It's always something spiritual pertaining to breath where people can't breathe and things begin to happen. And I think that is a sign of the time, and that is an example of creation moaning and groaning for us to get it right. And the role that the ancestors are playing in guiding us through this, is that something that you can give us some insight to? And you can do it tomorrow, even if we are on overload for right now. I'm okay for that question to wait until tomorrow. But I want to put that out there for us to think about that. And what are the signs of the times that the ancestors are showing us now, and what our responses should be based on what we're seeing?
That's, let me ask this question. Do you guys want to wait till tomorrow or right now? Because I personally feel like we need to address it now, since we've been talking about the ancestors in this particular.
Pastor,
Beg your pardon?
Pastor, I'd rather wait to give people an opportunity to look at it if they can. And the other movie that's out there is the one by Denzel Washington about piano player or something like that. And it has a lot to do about the ancestors. So, this is in the macro, and what we're seeing are things manifesting physically that kind of point to what we need to, what Kathy was talking about. What are the spiritual indicators that we need to be looking for?
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
It's called The Piano Lesson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And is that on Netflix as well?
I don't remember if it was Flix or
I'm
Prime.
not sure about Netflix. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
I'll send the email.
Go ahead, Bob.
I'll send an email. I don't remember if Renya were on, she'd be able to tell you, but I think she's still upstairs asleep.
Okay.
I have a question about clarification. When you talked about going forward with the discussion, you weren't talking about discussion about the movie. You were talking about the signs of the times. Is that the discussion we're talking about going forward with?
Yeah, the discussion, the signs of times, I can deal with that now. But the ancestor aspects of it is the part that I was asking the question about. waiting until tomorrow.
Well,
I-
I'm fine with moving ahead with that because I'm really, for me, this journey is catapulted me into a space that I've never been in before. And it's mind expanding. And I'm running to catch up to where you guys are. And at the same time, enlightenment is coming, the understanding is coming. And each time I sit with you, I understand more and more. It's getting clearer and clearer to me, understanding my indoctrination was complete. I had no idea why I always felt uncomfortable. I always felt like there was something else. And my mother and I talked about it. And a lot of the things that she explained to me helped, but I still felt something is missing. Something is just not meshing. And each time I'm with you all, I see the connections. I feel it. And so, I'm reading as much as I can, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can because all my life I have lived on faith. And now there's knowing. And I don't know whether you all realize it or not, but it's the most alive I've felt in my whole life. It's innovating, it's exciting, and it just makes you hunger for more. So please forgive me if I push you guys, or and later on, once I get all this together, I will have some questions. But for now, everything is just so wonderful for me. And it's like, as my mother used to say, it's like having the scales removed from my eyes. And you have no idea what it's like to see when you've been blind most of your life. And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
how I feel. So I just have to thank you, and just bear with me because sometimes I may push you, or yeah, I don't mean to get on your nerves, but I just need for you to know, how excited I am and how appreciative I am for you sharing your knowledge with me. That's it.
Thank
Pastor,
you.
now's the time. Now is the time.
Okay. Okay. Um, the first part of that question was about air, breathing. I have encountered more people with pneumonia than I ever in my life. It seems to be where I felt like it was a cluster until I started talking to people who are not in the area. Why does it always have to do with breathing? Why is it that the young man who was murdered in New York selling cigarettes on the street or DVDs or whatever it was, I can't breathe? The negativity or the adverse effect of someone who embodies the totality of everything that seeks to destroy people of color and the earth itself. What that embodiment is seen in the current president elect. And it sucks all the oxygen out of the room. That's one of the terms we use. This is an example of sucking the oxygen out of the room. Means that you're going to be forced to embrace a new reality, a reality that you never knew existed, in order for you to survive. Not because you are necessarily afraid, but for you to survive because of what you are telling yourself. Right now, the reason that the air is being sucked out of the room is because the only thing that this individual is doing is selling fear. Everything that he says he's going to do is designed to put you in a state of fear before he takes office. So whatever he does, you are afraid that the other shoe going to drop. You're afraid that it's going to happen to you. And as a result of that, we are being reminded by the universe that we must understand the only way to face this type of adversity is through spirituality. I believe that COVID happened for positive reasons. One being that it brought us together in a different way than we would ever have brought ourselves together in terms of being on Zoom. I also believe that it was there to expose what church really is, especially to Africans, and that it did, is money. And when we talk about ailments that involves our breathing, it's like we are feeling like we can't breathe, or I can't hold the spirit in this body to keep it alive. It's suffocating, meaning that the body does not want me to leave it. And I don't want to leave this body. It is not time for me to go. It is time for me to find out who I am. That's the message that's being sent. And as a result of that, you end up with respiratory illnesses. And if you think about what's been happening since 2020 or 2019, what's been happening is that it's been more and more of the ailments that involves the lungs, that involves breathing, that involves the spirit staying in this body. And I am saying that this is indicative of the end of humanity if we don't do what we are supposed to do. We said it wouldn't happen on our watch. It is not going to happen on our watch. So humanity is struggling to remain in this existence. The other part of it is that the fear of this European mindset is causing people to wonder if they want to stay here or not. They're struggling with staying in this body and exiting this body. When we look at that, we try to figure out how we're going to deal with it. However, us on this Zoom know how we are dealing with it, and that is through spiritual understanding. We are not going to allow anyone to suck the oxygen out of the room. We are bringing healing to this earth. The idea of the earth mourning, waiting for us to get it right, is seen not only in the illnesses that are attached to our respiratory system, but is also seen in the way that people are being treated overtly. Now, what we are also experiencing is a desire, especially by Africans, to know who they are. Some are still holding on to this whole concept of being African American when there is nothing American about you at all. You simply are an African without privileges, so you can't be American. One thing that I heard this morning that I felt really, really good about And it was, to me, it was a marker for where we are and the power of our existence in this earth. And that is that the ozone layer is repairing itself at a faster rate than was expected, at a faster rate than it has ever repaired itself. Now, with the same toxicity in the atmosphere that's coming from fossil fuels, especially, and refrigerants, with this in the air, how is it that the ozone layer is repairing itself and none of these or none of the CO2 that's been destroyed in the layer has been reduced? Yet it's repairing itself. It is not repairing itself. We are repairing it. So when we talk about the earth groaning, yes, it has been groaning, but it's not as loud as it was and not as frequent as it was, because there is a healing in the land. And the healing in the land means that there is a healing in the consciousness of humanity. And though we look like we are simply housed in these bodies, we have become the consciousness of this earth environment. And more particularly, we have become the consciousness of this colony called America. It is our consciousness, the depth of our desire to be the spiritual entities that we were brought into this earth to be, and to create in our image and likeness. That is the reason that is how rather we have become the consciousness of this colony called America and the rest of humanity. As far as the ancestors are concerned, we could not have done that without that guidance. We could not have done that without listening, without hearing. The place where I heard this about the ozone repair, I never listened to that particular channel in the morning anytime. And it was like on Channel 7 and on CBS. And when I heard that, that's the only thing that stuck with me from the whole program. I do believe that there was guidance from the ancestors that made sure that I heard that, because again, this is a marker for where we are and the power that we have. I will give you an example. Yesterday, I sat at the same place and I wrote 3 things down. I wrote rhythm, I wrote vibration and frequency, and I can't find it now. I don't know what happened to it. What am I saying to you? There are things that's happening in my life that will cause me, that should cause me to doubt everything that I believe. Yet I'm still experiencing phenomenon that we would deem to be impossible or coincidental. None of that, nothing in my life is coincidental, neither is it impossible. And I hope that you feel the same way because of you knowing who you are. The things that happen, sometimes they seem small, but when you are traveling this journey and you are being guided by the power of the ancestors, that means that nothing is small. Everything is enlarged because you observed it, you experienced it. The ancestors, where are they? They are in the midst of the universe. They are in the spiritual essence of who we are. They have never left this environment, meaning that in order for them to leave this environment, they would have to leave the space where all of us were created. They have not left that space. They are in the space of our origin. They are in that spiritual space of the spiritual origins of our essence. That's where they are. And they have access to everything that we are to be, to everything that we have been, and to everything that we shall think, and everything that we shall put in action. And that is the reason they are able to guide us beyond this space called Earth, beyond this environment of time. And what happens eventually, we begin to see more clearly that we live on the outer boundaries of time. We are only in the midst of time when it's necessary for us to come together. But however, our lives as spiritual beings is always on the fringes of time, because if we are constantly receiving from the spiritual essence of who we are, that means that we are living in the spiritual essence that we are. And we are in this world, but we are not of this world, meaning that we are not bound by the time of this world. We are not bound by the rudiments and principles of this world. We are obligated from the inception of our being to bring peace and harmony to this world. I'm going to say something that may sound self-serving, but at this juncture, it doesn't matter how you receive it. I got to say this. There are a group of people, more particularly Africans, who have come together to search their origin, who has come together to seek out the principles of existence, who has come together to have a renewal of who we are as the children of Akabalan. We have come together because we are God. We are Elohim. We are Ptah in this earth. And there has never been since Kemet was invaded and physically destroyed, there has never been a group of priests, a group of people, a group of sacredness, of sacred entities coming together and for the common purpose of not only returning to beginning, but understanding beginning as we return to it, so that we can be the beginning of a new life in this earth, so that we can be the pathway, the journey for others to take. It is imperative that we see that we are one spirit. We are one spirit who knows who we are. We are the spirit, the essence of not only the creator, but creation itself. And we are creating in this environment a mindset that is dominant, a mindset that is righteous, a mindset that overcomes any other mindset that is antithetical to our mission in this earth. And I don't have a clue as to what it will look like when we are at this space where the mission is accomplished. I don't know what that will look like, but I do know this. I know the essence of it, and the way it will come into existence is predicated on how we travel this journey, how dedicated we are, how committed we are to this journey. We asked for it. We asked for it and we have received it. Not on our watch means that we will take on the burdens of humanity, and we will bring them to a space where they should be. We will transform this worm into a butterfly. We will transform the mindset of the European. We will transform that mindset so that it can be the mindset of a Akabalan. It can be the mindset of the mother of everything, of every human on this earth. That is the mindset. Why is that so important? Because regardless of how wayward the child is, the mother is still reaching out and holding out hope that they will change. Here we are representing the mother of all of humanity, the cosmic mother, has given us the marching orders to retrieve her children and to bring them to a space where they respect her, where they respect each other, where they are willing to do what is necessary in order to bring them home. They are away now. They have sought to take everything from a Cabelon and use it the way they want to. But they have found themselves rather, in a place where they are eating the food that only hogs eat. In other words, the slop. What they are feasting on is greed. What they are feasting on is racism. What they are feasting on is religion. And it is time for them to come home. They cannot come home on their own because they don't know the way home. They don't even know how they left. We are obligated to bring them home. The cosmic mother has granted us the authority to do that, but more importantly than authority, has invested in us the honor of being the burden bearers for humanity, the honor of being the leaders that guides her children to the place of a Kabbalah, the spiritual essence of the African mindset. Thank you.
Did that address the question?
And so it is.
We good, Kathy?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Powerful. Thank you.
Barb?
We,
Sante Sana.
Karibu.
All right, everybody good?
Not yet. If you got to go, go, but not yet. We have to get this right now. The true existence of humanity depends on what we do from this day forward, as it has been from the onset of this journey. We have reached a pivotal point in this journey. Think about all the things that have been proposed against humanity. All of it is coming to a head now. And we, the buffer for humanity, we will not allow the foundation of humanity to be dismantled for the greed and racist desires of a group of ignorant ass people who have no clue as to what righteousness is, who have taken the very thing that they call a religion from God and used it to commit genocide, and is silent as people of color are being slaughtered and given weapons to white folk to fight white folks, the Ukraine and Russia, but watching white folk destroy people of color in Gaza with the intent of driving them into the sea. And we have a president-elect who feels the exact same way about us, anybody who doesn't look like them. And I say to them, in the face of humanity, you be damned, because that's not going to happen. It's on us. And I don't know about you. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't even know how you feel about it. But what I do know is this. If I have to travel the journey alone, I will do it. If my life is taken from this body, it is okay. I would rather die for what I believe and my desires for humanity than to live with my head in the sand, to live in fear, and to live in a world where I can only see a material environment and not experience the spiritual essence, the spiritual reality of who we are. What is your commitment? I'm done.
Ashe.
Ashe.
I'm done.
Okay. All right. Until tomorrow then, good place to pause. Okay. Meditations, y'all. Good energy. Have a good day.
And so it shall be.
Thank you.